family. My name is Vicki Dillard for African Diaspora News Channel. Thank you so much for tuning in, family. You all know that I have been covering the diaspora, specifically the continent of Africa and its many nations, 54 nations, over the past several years. And some folks wondered, who is this Mississippi girl who now lives in the wild, wild west in the United States to cover international issues? Well, I'm the original woman. That's who I am. And so the whole planet belonged to us before these recent mess makers came on our planet. So if anybody knows the best way to deal with our country, our world, our planet, our countries, plural, and our world and our planet, it's us. So we're getting back to business. Let's just consider it like that. With that being said, one of the things that I discussed, and I showed you footage of some of our high-level Sahel officials that were at the UN Assembly. And I played you the recording of some of them talking about the fact that it was the United States, the West, and some of her backers like France and so forth that specifically financed such organizations and groups like Al-Shabaab. I showed you even some of other Black and African high-level professionals, and they mentioned either themselves or with references, because I've done several, specific details approving in no limit of time the complicity, at the very least, if not the creation of these organizations by the West. Keep that in mind when you watch this brief clip.
U.S. Africa Command said in a press release on Monday that its forces had launched, quote unquote, multiple airstrikes as part of a 2-week operation against the ISIS affiliate in Somalia's northeastern Puntland region that concluded on August 23rd. Quote, operations consisted of targeted strikes against ISIS leadership safe havens in the Golis Mountains. The command said, offering no other details about the strikes. Quote, specific details about the operation will not be released in order to ensure operation security, end quote. They love those hiding behind the national security or operations security for sure. AFRICOM said that the operation was launched, quote, in coordination with the federal government of Somalia, end quote, but the U.S.-backed Mogadishu-based government doesn't control Puntland, and the U.S. military backs local forces on the ground in the campaign against the ISIS affiliate, which is an offshoot of Al-Shabaab. An ex-account for the Puntland counterterrorism operations has announced a series of operations against ISIS fighters in the mountains in recent weeks, claiming to have captured caves the militants were using as hideouts.
90s in this specific way, after the end of the Cold War. And just for a quick background of this current war, this is part of after 9/11. The Bush administration turned its sights on Somalia as part of the terror wars. And one of the things they did in 2006 was they backed an Ethiopian invasion, which kicked out a government that was very briefly in power in Mogadishu, the Islamic Courts Union. They took power from all these CIA-backed warlords that were, the U.S. would give money to root out so-called, terrorists and everything. So the Islamic Courts Union took power. Ethiopia knocked them out. And then kind of the radical offshoot of the Islamic Courts Union was Al-Shabaab. And their first recorded attack was in 2007 against Ethiopian troops occupying Mogadishu. So it's important to understand where they came from. And then, of course, the U.S. kind of supported operations against them and helped install the current government that's based. I always call them the Mogadishu-based government, the government in Mogadishu, because you look at the map in Somalia, they control very little territory.
Okay, family, that was a clip from a guest that was on Jimmy Dore's broadcast, which I don't get to see a lot of his stuff. But it's important when, other alternative media folks, when other white folks like that with their audiences talk about issues that are actually pertaining to Black people in the United States and around the world, which they don't rarely do. And if they do, a lot of times they talk about it because, some of the white folks they don't like that are elites, they done tick them off. So they have to, talk about issues that hit us up, talk back to me, somebody. But this was an important issue. And one of the things it says in this description is that the U.S. has shattered records for airstrikes in Somalia under Trump, with 68 already launched in 2025. That's this year, y'all, through August, surpassing his own previous high of 63. That's Trump. These strikes both target both Al-Shabaab and a small ISIS affiliate in the Puntland region, with operations often justified under national security, while few details about casualties or effectiveness are ever provided. It talks about here the antiwar.com's Dave DeCamp, that's the gentleman that you just heard from, explains to guest host Misty Winston, the Mogadishu-based government remains weak, propped up by U.S. support, leading him to draw parallels to Afghanistan, where endless intervention fueled instability. Now, this is interesting, family, because for a number of different reasons. One is, and of course, I reminded you all of this many times. Look at this headline, this article all the way back from Al Jazeera from when? 2003. This was many, many years ago, right? 20 some odd years ago. Why am I bringing this to your attention? I'm bringing this to your attention. Not only did I bring this up a few years ago, not only did I bring it up just a few months ago, but I'm going to continue to bring it up because it shows to be relevant. Why? Look at the headline. U.S. plans to attack 7 Muslim states. When did I say this article was issued? 22 years ago. Presidential hopeful, this was at the time, General Wesley Clark, he used to be a NATO general, a NATO high-level official, says that the White House devised a 5-year plan after 9/11 strikes to attack 7 majority Muslim countries. Y'all listen. A former commander of NATO's forces in Europe, Clark claims he met a senior military officer in Washington in November 2001 who told him the Bush administration was planning to attack, y'all ready? Iraq first, before taking action against Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Iran, Somalia, and Sudan. Black family, that was originally told or heard at least from Commander Wesley when he was under NATO. He claims it from 2001. This article was from 2003. So the public has known about this. Of course, many other articles know about this as well. I'm using Al Jazeera because it's an international paper and many folks are aware of them. But this shows that we've known about this for many, many years, longer than some of you all that are watching me perhaps have even been alive. They've hit up every one of those countries. And Somalia, like Sudan and Libya, is one of the very, very, very black countries that was on their hit list many years ago. I wanted you to look at the parallels to let you all know that in that piece that you just heard, it not only implicates Somalia and the tragedy and the upheaval and the war and the division that continues to go on there, but they brought up what? Ethiopia. How many of you all remember that whenever I'm covering the great country of Eritrea, they remain a thorn in the side of the United States, even though the United States continues to plot against them, but at the same time, they show respect for them because they were one of the few countries in that region that resisted the United States for many decades. One of the things the great president of that country of Eritrea, President Isaias Afwerki, stated was that who is the one that really causes instability in Somalia, even though Somalia has had their issues with Eritrea. President Afwerki said, who has been the mess maker? That's my words. Who has been the problem in Somalia? We continue to see the United States backing a lot of these so-called terrorist organizations. Remember what I said at the beginning of this broadcast? A few years ago, I already gave you all commentary from direct voices and references from experts that say that it is the West that either created these so-called terrorist organizations or backed them. And this is the reason why the President Assimi's and the President Traore's are a problem for the West. Because they don't conform and they don't invite you in to fight their battles. And one of the reasons why some of you all, when you were seeing my commentary for many, related to many different African countries, and I keep talking about how the United States, France, all them, they don't want to get out. Who doesn't want to leave when somebody tells them to get out of there? Especially when the people say that we're going to fight the terrorists. Well, if you're the one that's creating the terrorist or substantially funding and backing them for your own nefarious reasons, perhaps that's why you don't want to go. Can't wait to see what you have to say about this. Please stay tuned because I'm going to be doing more commentary on this because there are reasons that we know about and there are reasons that remain unknown specifically as to why they continue to target these very areas. Now, we know that Somalia is considered to be, quote unquote, a weak country in many ways, but there is a reason why the powers that shouldn't be globalists want those certain regions to be filled with warfare. It's not about them winning any kind of war. Sometimes they win when they continue to cause instability and warfare. See, when you're not developing using the resources in your country that they need, then that means that the white Western countries are likely going to lose. They fleece your countries for minerals and resources that their countries need to exist and to live and to thrive and to survive. But if you decide that you're going to develop using your own stuff, then that means that they're going to have a true competitor, and they can't afford you doing that. That's number one. Number two, some of these countries are situated strategically in routes where energy pipelines and sources can go through that's going to support the West and her white Western allies. In addition, there are other geopolitical reasons for which they're there that major U.S. corporations, multinational, transnational corporations and companies thrive and benefit from. These are the folks that support and put in power certain government leaders. But not only that, there are Red Sea, there are trade routes in other places that also are of concern for them that they are within proximity to. Not only that, these folks might serve as a buffer from China, Russia, and other global South folk from growing in and gaining more influence. So they know they got a lot of influence in so many other countries, darker, melanated countries of the world. So they want to make sure that they stop them at the door. Not only that, there are certain regions, in my opinion, I believe, that they use to spy and to get information on other countries within proximity. You heard what I said. That's a lot, isn't it? I can't wait to hear what you have to say about it. My name is Vicki Dillard, beloved. I have an upcoming, powerful private VIP webinar that I'm going to be doing on September 15th. You don't want to miss it. Everybody knows that my breakdowns are unmatched because I'm getting supernatural information and I'm connecting dots using not only politics statewide, nationally, and internationally, but I connect it to the spiritual unseen government. Just like you see stuff playing out in the news on earth, there's a government in the heavens over your head that's got a plan, and you want to know about it so that you can participate in the new world that's to come, ruling and putting evil out of its place. Go to my website to learn more about it at VickiPlanet.com, VICKI Planet.com. Do something you've never done before. Join, listen, invest in yourself for a very small cost. Why? As it is written, my people perish for lack of knowledge. Not lack of credit, not lack of money, but lack of knowledge. When you change what you're hearing, the word, the W-O-R-D that you're hearing, you will change your world, your W-O-R-L-D. It's only one letter that's different from the word word and the word world. If you want a new world, you got to change the word that you're hearing so that you'll know how to move. Go to VickiPlanet.com. Be sure to share the broadcast. I can't wait to see you again.